disoriented because Hillary Clinton came out and announced that we've got the resumption for the first time in 9 years of the direct talks between the Israelis and the Palestinian Authority of Abu Abbas, Abu Mazen. But of course, this is probably the weakest attempt at negotiations we've ever seen.
Well, they always try a negotiation before a new war to say, see, we tried.
Quite possibly. And the thing is, the Israelis did a tank thrust into Gaza this past weekend. So it's a very strange combination.
And they also sent fighter aircraft into Lebanon and other areas over the weekend.
Right. So this doesn't look like it's very serious. And if Netanyahu says he's going to start building settlements again, and if he does, then these talks will come to a very quick end. Now, on the Iranian side, we've had all sorts of things, right? They had a photo op where they displayed all these graves in the desert saying, here, Americans, Israelis, these are the graves for your soldiers.
They're now showing these attack drones, the ambassador of death.
Right, the messenger of death. That's the other one. This can carry 500 pounds of warhead for a 650-mile range. Now, that would necessarily have to operate from southern Lebanon, from Syria, or from someplace else if the target were going
What is the message that they've put the messenger of death in Lebanon?
They may well be, because what they've put there for sure are these M600 short-range ballistic missiles with guidance systems, which actually can be used to target specific military targets. So no longer counter value for Hezbollah, no longer terror attacks on Israeli cities, but now counter force attacks on the air bases where the Israeli Air Force operates inside Israel. That is very, very scary. That's the kind of thing that pushes the situation towards this desperation. Now, the Bushehr reactor, this has gotten a lot of attention. This is a reactor, interestingly, that was begun about 30 years ago. It was actually begun before Ayatollah Khomeini took over Iran. And when Ayatollah Khomeini came in, he shut down the entire nuclear program of Iran. They would have had, without Khomeini, they would have had 10 or 15 functioning nuclear reactors, plenty of nuclear power. This whole thing would be a non-issue. But Khomeini, who was, of course, favored by Carter and Brzezinski, right, as their Islamic card against the Soviets, as it turned out to be, Khomeini insisted on shutting down all this stuff. So now we've got the Bushehr reactor, started, I think, by the German firm Siemens back in the very late 70s, finally coming online, this time with Russian technology and Russian technicians. We had Bolton, the former UN ambassador of the neocons, right, of the Bush regime, the younger, saying that if you want to attack, you've got to do that now in the next, when he said it, 7 or 8 days, it would basically be now in the next day or two, but before the end of August in any case, because otherwise you're going to spread nuclear waste and nuclear debris. The problem with that argument is it's absurd, because if you're talking about bombing the Iranian nuclear program, you're always going to be spreading nuclear debris, right? Any attack on any nuclear facility, be it centrifuges or uranium enrichment or whatever it is, that's going to spread radioactive debris. So there really is no basis to say, even from these guys' points of view, that it has to be done now. So what Bolton was trying to do was to get a new wave of hysteria and perhaps even act as a cover for an attack, but that may not happen. But his deadline was always a fake deadline. The deadlines go on and on. It doesn't change. So we then got this military situation, and I think if you look back to the Lebanon war of 4 years ago, remember that the Israelis fared very, very badly in that war because they were confronting, in those days, Hezbollah armed with some fairly modern Soviet bloc and Russian equipment, which was sufficient to destroy the vaunted Merkava tank that the Israelis had built up and were parading as an invincible war machine. That certainly didn't happen. And now, this time around, you'd have to say Hezbollah has actually increased its armament with the help of Iran and with the help of Syria. They have got, in addition to these old-fashioned World War II-style rockets, the Grad or the Katyushka or whatever they are, they've also got these handheld anti-aircraft missiles, right? The Grail the Gremlin, and the Grouse. These are like the U.S. Stinger. They can be used to shoot down airplanes and helicopters, flying at fairly low level.
Well, Webster, so the odds are being evened up here. But I have the question, geopolitically from your research of the region, if Israel actually went and did real peace talks, would Iran ever stop arming Hezbollah and Hamas? Would they ever pull out of Gaza and other areas? Because if you look at it, it just means which side do you take? Israel wants to knock out Iran. Iran wants to knock them out. And so from the Israeli perspective, do they have any choice? Because I'm against these wars, against World War III. I don't like what Israel's doing. I'm against it. But, I mean, what is Israel's choice then if they back down? Is there any chance the Arabs will back down?
I think the choice is a regional peace conference involving all states in the region and also certain non-state actors like Hezbollah or Hamas or others that act as a strategic force. You mentioned this article in the Atlantic Monthly by Jeffrey Goldberg, right? This the idea that the Israeli attack on Iran is inevitable because Iran poses this existential life or death threat to Iran. I would call your attention to an article by Trita Parsi. He's a scholar in the field, and his finding is that the Israeli leaders really don't believe that themselves, but that this is a rhetorical stance that they've decided to take from the moment that Obama came into the White House.
All right, stay there. Let's talk about it when we come back. Webster Tarpley.
Hi, this is Alex Jones. Did you know that the global elite are now storing non-hybrid seeds in secret storage vaults near the Arctic Circle? Did you know that in a real meltdown, non-hybrid seeds can become more valuable than silver or gold? It's true, seeds have outperformed even gold and silver before in this country, and it's possible that could even happen again. So our friends at Solutions from Science have put together the perfect mix of non-hybrid seeds. They call it a survival seed bank, and it can produce an endless supply of nutrient-dense food for you and your family. And here's the best part. These seeds have not been genetically modified in any way, and you actually get enough seeds to plant a full-acre crisis garden. So visit them today at survivalseedbank.com. That's survivalseedbank.com, or give them a call at 877-327-0365. That's 877-327-0365. Remember, in a real crisis, non-hybrid seeds are the ultimate barter item. This is Alex Jones for survivalseedbank.com.
Attention, this is a special alert to all Americans who owe $10,000 or more in back taxes to the IRS. The IRS is now accepting reduced settlements from people who owe back taxes and dramatically lowering amounts owed. Due to the financial crisis in America, the IRS has announced a leniency plan in recognition of consumers' financial troubles in today's economy. If you owe $10,000 or more in back taxes to the IRS, an open phone line has been established by American Tax Settlement for you to call and see if you qualify for a reduction by up to 75%. Number to call is 800-902-6969. Again, the IRS is now accepting reduced settlements from consumers who owe back taxes in response to the decline in today's economy. If you are struggling with $10,000 or more in back taxes to the IRS, you now may be eligible for a dramatic reduction by up to 75% and save thousands of dollars. For free information and to see if you qualify, call the open phone line into American Tax Settlement now. 800-902-6969. 800-902-6969. Again, 800-902-6969.
You've seen our SinoFresh banner on the GCN website.
Yet your sinusitis is still a problem.
Are you waiting for your sinusitis to go away by itself?
Are you waiting for a SinoFresh discount?
Okay, here it comes.
But first, the facts.
67 other products merely treat symptoms.
And not the cause of sinus problems.
And 37 million Americans suffer from sinus distress just like you. But now many are finding relief with the only patent-protected homeopathic nasal product that antiseptically eliminates the known causes of sinusitis. SinoFresh.
Now, here's your limited time discount offer to use SinoFresh.
Call 888-906-3636 right now for $2 off per bottle when you mention GCN. That's it. Just call 888-906-3636 and mention GCN for a $2 discount.
But hurry, this offer is only for the first 1,000 customers.
Call 888-906-3636. 888-906-3636. Call right now for $2 off per bottle.
Mention GCN.
Buy SinoFresh.com. It works.
Okay, I got a lot of key news coming up the next hour. First, your calls, Dan, Virgil, Will, Ron, Ronnie, and others that are patiently holding. But finishing up with Webster, you were getting into Jeffrey Goldberg, the Israeli asset, and he's been all over NPR, you name it, promoting. It's sad, but it's a foregone conclusion. We've got to do it because they're going to nuke us if we don't, and Israel's going to do it. But you're saying that that's just talk. What's behind that?
I think it's propaganda. It's the kind of talk that can lead to tragic consequences. You have this guy, Trita Parsi, who is a fairly mainline academic. He's obviously of Iranian background. So he essentially has assembled a book about secret negotiations among Iran, Israel, the United States. And he points to the fact that Ehud Barak, the current defense minister of Israel, tells the Israeli newspaper Yedioth Ahronoth, September 2009, so less than a year ago, quote, "I am not among those who believe that Iran is an existential issue for Israel." Then we have the foreign minister of Israel in the previous government, Tzipi Livni, argues, according to Haaretz, in private that a nuclear Iran is not an existential threat to Israel. This guy himself, Trita Parsi, says he talked to the former head of the Mossad, Ephraim Halevi, and Halevi says the idea that Iran can destroy Israel creates the dangerous impression, the false impression, that Israel is helpless and vulnerable. And Halevi said something like that in public. So I think there's actually a greater strategic sobriety, awareness of the realities in the Israeli leadership than what they're putting on. And I think it is in some ways the desire to goad the United States into some aggressive actions by using this
and
kind of
to
rhetoric.
goad Iran into more aggressive rhetoric.
Right, now, on the side of Iran, let me just point to one thing. So far, we don't have any evidence that there's an Iranian nuclear program. We're still operating under the NIE of December 2007. Now, all the neocons are saying that's because of this guy, Amiri. This is the famous Amiri, who was all over the Internet, and now he went back to Iran. He was a double agent. He lied to us, and that's why we came to the wrong conclusion almost 3 years ago. There's no proof. And we have Flint Leverett, one of the best experts on Iran. He was in the Bush NSC with his wife. He also says there's no evidence of an Iranian nuclear program.
Well, Webster, we know that CIA report was based on the UN inspectors and others, not on that so-called defector. But we got about 2-3 minutes left.
Just one last thing is this John Mearsheimer, right, the professor of political science at the University of Chicago, who says if he had to give advice to Ahmadinejad, he would acquire a nuclear deterrent. Deterrent means deterrent. It's not a first strike force. It would be a modest nuclear deterrent that would simply guarantee that nobody's going to...
No, I understand. Israel has hundreds of nukes and...
Certainly. And, of course, Pakistan has hundreds of, at least a significant number. Pakistan is actually an example of a country that the U.S. might like to attack but does not attack because they do have nuclear weapons. So there's a lot of fakery. But the answer to this would be a regional peace conference. The Israelis feel threatened. Yeah, fine. The Iranians feel more threatened. So go to the table.
Webster, we're out of time, and I had one more question. What do you think of Hamid Gul, former head of Pakistani intelligence? He came on this show and said that the West is staging events to stir up the Muslims in Central Asia as a pretext to expand war.
Absolutely. Anything coming from him, I would take very seriously. He's obviously been widely demonized, but I don't think there's too much basis for that. So, again, the main guy going after him is Assange, right, of WikiLeaks. And we just saw Assange over the weekend. He dyed his hair, Alex. Did you see? Assange is no longer a blonde.
Yeah, but doesn't that, I mean, that looks like they're trying to set him up, claiming he was molesting people, and it's not true.
I think he's essentially had the charges dropped. The reason the blonde stuff is interesting is this cult that his family's associated with, the Ann Hamilton Byrne cult, where they gave kids LSD. All the kids in that cult had to be dyed blonde, so maybe he's trying to show us that he's...
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to GCN. Visit GCNlive.com today.
Listen up, friends. This is Alex Jones with key information. The mainstream media is now admitting that we're going into a depression. Don't be dependent on the government for you and your family. You need to get your own supply of high-quality storable foods from eFoodsDirect.com. They're the best company out there, the longest continually operating, with a ton of great food to choose from. It's all free.